Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. I'm Nicolette Hodge. Welcome to We Reflect the Light. All right, sisters and brothers. I'm going to identify the true history of the original black man and original black woman right here in the hills of North America for the last 400 years. I'm going to expose their plans, one of their plans, to destroy our seed, identifying their innermost thoughts about us, which is laid out in the book of Exodus. Then I'm going to tie all that into the war in the Middle East and how the outcome of this war is going to affect the original nation. All right, sisters and brothers. Who is the true seed of Abraham? This is a very simple question. However, it requires reading and understanding the scriptures. The book of Genesis gives a detailed history of what Abraham's seed would endure and for how long. And so we are the only ones on the planet who fit that description, and you'll see that. However, there's a discrepancy going on, sisters and brothers. False Israel claims that they are us. They claim that they are the true seed of Abraham. Why are they doing that? What's so special about Abraham's seed that there is an entire group of people still in our identity? What does Abraham's seed have to look forward to? What is the true vision of Abraham's seed? What is the reward? What is the covenant that belongs to Abraham's seed? So once we answer all those questions, then you understand why it is that we are in danger, sisters and brothers. Simply because of who we are. So let's keep moving. The book of Exodus identifies how these devils are thinking about us, their psychology behind their plans. It says, "Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." All right, sisters and brothers. These devils are dealing shrewdly with us. That means they're doing things, lining up our destruction right in front of our face, doing it in such a way where they're tricking us. They're being sneaky about it, doing it in such a way where you don't detect or identify exactly what's going on. However, the unsealed scriptures, when understood and moved on, keeps us several steps ahead of these devils at all times. It tells us the moves that they're going to make before they even make them. It tells us why they want to make those moves. It tells us how they're doing it as well. So they're dealing shrewdly with us. They want to prevent us from multiplying. How would they come out of, excuse me, sisters and brothers, ask yourself this. If these devils want to prevent us from multiplying, how would they come at us to prevent us from multiplying in a shrewd manner? How would they underhand or try to trick us? How would they do that? Because they're not forthright with it. They're not blatant. They're dealing shrewdly with us. Now, in some instances, when we look back at our history and our experience here, we say, yes, these devils were blatantly doing X, Y, Z. So that's something that's valid. However, strictly dealing with this scripture here, it says they're dealing shrewdly with us, lest they multiply. So they want to prevent us from multiplying. How would they come at us shrewdly to prevent our multiplication, which is our reproduction? We'll get into that. Secondly, and because there's two things here, they don't want us multiplying. And then the second thing is, if a war breaks out, they join our enemies. So we join America's enemies and fight against America and escape from the land. So this is a twofold situation. They don't want us multiplying, and they don't want us fighting against them and leaving this country. So that is very alarming, because they're saying a lot here. Why are they fearful? Why are they scared of us joining their enemies, joining America's enemies, fighting them, and then leaving, escaping? Look, that word escape. Escape from the land. Escape. That means that we're being held here captive. So there's layers and layers of information in the unsealed scriptures, sisters and brothers. So this tells you a lot right here. They don't want us multiplying. They don't want us reproducing. And they don't want us fighting against them and leaving the country. All right? And that's exactly, well, we're leaving. The bottom line is leaving the country. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to leave the country. All right? And so how are they dealing shrewdly with us? How are they dealing shrewdly with us? That's what we're going to get into, sisters and brothers. All right? Also, we are leaving this land. We have our own land. All right? And we've been here for a certain time period, and now that time period is up. So now we're in the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant, which is our vision. So we are about to leave America. They don't want us to leave America. So also, in them dealing shrewdly with us, before we move on to the next scripture, ask yourself, how would they deal shrewdly with us to prevent us from leaving America? How would they prevent that? So there's many different ways, many different things that they have implemented for the last 400 years to totally prevent us from leaving America. One of those things is by trying to destroy us, trying to destroy our seed completely. So that's what I'm about to identify here. All right, this is the book of Matthew, the parable of the wheat and the tares. Tares also means chaff, sisters and brothers. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. The servants said to him, Do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, No, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, First, gather together the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. All right, sisters and brothers. This parable is identifying, well, let me start here. It says a man sowed good seed in his field. It didn't say that he planted. So, and only a man can sow seed. And it identifies that an enemy came and sowed tares. Okay, and this is in the same field. We know that the wheat, according to the angel, the wheat is the original black man and original black woman right here in North America. So the wheat is a group of people. And we know that tares or chaff looks just like wheat. So the tares is also a group of people. And this is also identified in the angel, which is the unsealed book of Revelations. Okay. So here we have two different groups of people that's being identified, and they look just alike. However, they are not the same. They're from two different seeds. So this parable is identifying a biological scenario that's going on, a reproduction situation. Okay? And let's keep moving. So a man sowed good seed in his field. So what he did was right. All right? This field that's being identified, because it says the man sowed good seed in this field. And it said, but while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. Right. So a man sowed good seed in his field. Well, how does a man sow his seed? He reproduces. He puts his seed into the womb of his woman and multiplies himself, reproduces. Okay? So that's perfectly fine. That is what we want. That's a man that is the original black man. And he put his seed into his woman. He impregnated her. Okay, it's great. But while men slept, so we know that this also identifies a time period that the original nation is in energy deprivation. And there's quite a bit of history behind that. However, to keep it simple, we are connected to the planet, sisters and brothers. And what happens is the universe expands and contracts. And when the universe expands, the planet loses energy. And when the universe contracts, the planet receives energy. And because we are connected to the planet, when the planet loses energy, we lose energy. When the planet receives energy, we receive energy. So during this time period, it says while this men slept, that identifies a time period where we were in energy deprivation because energy, the universe was expanding, so energy is leaving the planet. So this is also showing that while we were at our lowest point, because it takes energy to do everything, sisters and brothers. Okay? It takes energy to breathe, it takes energy to think, it takes energy to walk, talk, reproduce. It also takes energy to maintain civilization, maintain your home, maintain your land, maintain your family structure. So during this, when we were going into energy deprivation, okay, we knew that we were not going to have enough energy to sustain civilization because we are very complex beings. We have a complex DNA. Therefore, it takes a lot of energy to maintain us. So we produced a being that is not complex. We produced a being that is a stripped down version of us. Okay? Supreme Wisdom Lessons goes into detail how we produced the Caucasian white man. And it was a process of separating the black germ from the brown germ, and then taking the brown germ and stripping it all the way down till it became white. So we stripped it down, and in that process, that germ was made weak. Okay, that's why these devils are wicked, because they're weak. Okay, this is facts, biological facts, scientific facts. So we gave these devils a certain time period to uphold civilization. So they had dominion. Okay, they were in rulership, because it doesn't take that much energy to maintain themselves. Therefore, they have available energy left over to maintain civilization. And we barely had enough energy to maintain our own selves, keeping our life sustained, breathing, eating, drinking. It takes a lot of energy. It takes energy for us to be able to do that. So we produced somebody who didn't need that much energy, therefore they could use it to sustain civilization. We said dirty water is better than no water. All right? And this is not something that we can control as far as the expansion and the contraction periods of the universe. The universe goes through different seasons. We cannot control those seasons, sisters and brothers. We can only control how it is that we respond to it, and how we move on that information. So that was our solution, okay? And we agreed, we were told to submit to Adam, which is the devils. We were told to submit to the devils during this time period that they are ruling. And that's exactly what we did. No one else did that but us, sisters and brothers. So, while men slept, okay, from my perspective, we were at a vulnerable state. We were at our lowest point. All right? And so the enemy didn't do this while we were awake. So that shows a layer that shows that they were dealing shrewdly with us, because they waited, or they did it while we were sleeping. It says while men slept. So they did it while we were in this state of energy deprivation. Okay? And so the man sowed good seed in his field, and that produced wheat. But then the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. So the enemy came and put his seed into the wheat. So this is identifying, again, groups of people, the enemy, which is the Caucasian man, came and put his seed in, enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. So he put his seed into the womb of the original black woman, okay, and produced his seed. So now we are dealing with the wheat, which is a group of original black people, and the tares, which is a group of Caucasians in black skin. So Caucasians dipped in the color black skin. So they're skin folk to the wheat, but they're not kinfolk. They look like the wheat, but they're not the wheat. They have a different bloodline from the wheat. So two people who look just alike, but two different bloodlines. So that's deceptive right there. Because why did they camouflage themselves amongst us? Why did they present themselves as the wheat with the bloodline and the DNA of the devil? So hold on to that question. We're going to answer that question. So now, when the grain had sprouted and produced crop, the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. So these devils, they're dealing with us shrewdly, putting their seed into our wombs without permission, without our consent. So they raped us around the clock, nonstop. And they're dealing with us shrewdly, thinking they tricking someone, and they have not gotten away with a damn thing. So it says shrewdly. Understand that they're not wise. Because the wise thing, they were told not to touch that tree. We submitted to these devils and they were given dominion. However, they were told, do not touch that tree. And that would have been the wise thing to not do. Yet in them dealing shrewdly with us, thinking they're getting over on someone, that's exactly what they did. They touched that tree over and over and over again. They touched the tree relentlessly, raping our sisters around the clock. And as I have explained, the fact that they raped us lets you know that we did not desire intimate relations with these devils. We did not want to reproduce with these devils. We did not want to lay down with these devils. We did not want these devils touching us, period. So that makes you wonder about these black women who have devils on their arm, and they are producing families with them, marrying devils. Okay, that's a red flag. Now, this is not not bashing the original black woman, because you haven't done anything wrong. And there's all kind of details that must always be considered when making certain points about our condition. Because just because a sister has laid down with a devil, she might have been trying to pay her bills. She might have laid down with a devil to be able to take care of her children and buy what she needs. So this is not You're not sinful, sisters. All right? You haven't done anything wrong. All right? You have not been protected for the last 400 years. That has been recognized, and that is going to change here in a few days. So understand that this is not bashing any sister that has laid down with a devil. They raped us. They forced us for the last 400 years. Okay? So we're not here to critique our sisters. What I'm pointing out is these Candace Owens up there parading her devil husband around, producing a family with him. You have to understand that that's not our people. Those are house Negroes. That's the tares, that's the chaff. Also called demons. Half devil, half man. A black person with the bloodline and the nature of their devil father. It is a scientific biological fact that the father carries the seed. Therefore, the father carries the bloodline. Therefore, you are the seed of your father. There's no exceptions. So, the demons, they love Massa. They love the devils. They marry the devils. All right? They live in the big house with the devils. Just like when we were in the fields. They got to stay in the big house. They got all kinds of accommodations just for being Massa's children. They got to have clothes on their backs. They got to sleep comfortably at night. They were allowed to have families. So when you see these different slavery movies, understand that that's not our true experience. They're showing you, majority of what they're showing you is what their devil children got to have. We didn't have our own cabin. We weren't around the fire eating dinner at night together. None of that. None of it. They stripped us down naked. They shackled us up at night, had us all on top of each other, sitting in our own piss and shit. And it was horrible. And our experience was horror from start to finish. So do not be deceived about our true history. So, back to the parable. This enemy came and put his seed into the same womb that the man put his seed into. Right? And produced his house Negroes. So the devils put their seed into the original sister's womb and produced their demon children. So now the chaff and the wheat, those two groups of black people, the original black man and original black woman is mixed in with the demons. The demons have the same appearance, but a different bloodline and a different nature. However, we are told right here in this parable that they are not to be separated into a certain time period. Because if they were to be separated prematurely, it would harm the wheat. So, at a certain time period, which is called the harvest, which we know that time period is when all blacks flee. When all blacks come together, that's the harvest. And then the demons will be separated from the original nation. And they will be binded in bundles and burned, which is also angel language. And the wheat will be gathered together into my barn, which is also angel language. However, the bottom line is identifying that the wheat will be protected and the wheat will be saved while the demons will be destroyed. That's the bottom line. So again, these devils have not gotten away with a damn thing. They're not getting over on anybody. They think they are. However, they're only tricking themselves. All right? So let's keep going. Our true experience is called the Holocaust. They call our experience slavery. That's not true. That's not our full experience. Slavery is only 1% of our experience. Slavery is working someone without paying them. It is an economic system of capitalism. Maximum profit, minimum overhead. We're slaves right now, sisters and brothers. We used to be called a plantation. Now we go to the plant. We're on the job, all right? Due to our creativity and our minds, just the fact that we handle business, period, okay? They know how valuable we are. So we bring in $5,000 to the company, all right? We only get paid $1,000 every 2 weeks. That's slavery. By definition, they are controlling our energy because it's not like we get to take home everything that we brought in. So they're capitalizing off of us. They're getting as much labor out of us as possible, working the hell out of us, just taking as much as possible. Maximum profit, getting them as much as they can, and then minimum overhead, giving us back just enough to keep us alive so that we can keep producing for them, so that we can keep bringing in money for them. But we don't get to see that money. Okay, so understand that. Take the money out of it. They're taking all this energy from us, and they are not giving us back what our energy has produced. So we're still slaves right now. Slavery cannot possibly be our full experience because it's documented facts of the horror that we endured for the last 400 years. So slavery is not the correct term for our history. Our true history is called the Holocaust. The Holocaust. Get used to that term, sisters and brothers, because that is the term that clearly identifies our full experience. Slavery is only 1%, but the other 99% of our experience is the affliction. So the Holocaust. Let's keep moving. This is the true history of Abraham's seed. So anyone claiming to be the true seed of Abraham would have to fit this description. No exceptions. It shares, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety. So that means this is a sure thing that happened. This is a definite. This is not a critical race theory. This is not anyone's opinion. This is not a guess. This is a sure, definite. Know of a surety that thy seed. So again, it's identifying the bloodline of Abraham. And it's very subtle because this is the only part in scripture where Abraham is called Abram. And this identifies that Ham, which is Abram's seed, would be separated from Abram during this time period. And very quickly, these devils they claim that they're the true seed of Abraham. Yet they say that we are Ham, who's cursed black to be slaves forever and ever. So they're saying that we're Ham, okay? Now, they don't understand that scripture to the fullness. However, they are saying that we're Ham and we are Ham, okay? So, since we're Ham, and right here, Abram is called Abram, which is identifying that his seed, Ham, is separated from him during this time period, then even by these devils' with their own admission, that right there proves that we are the true seed of Abraham. So based off of their own admission, saying that we're Ham and we're cursed to be slaves forever and ever, they have admitted right there that we are God's chosen people. So they walked right into it, sisters and brothers. And the thing is, they think they're smart, but the scriptures, it says they're dealing with us shrewdly, all right? And they don't have a full 360 view of what's going on here. They might only be able to see, and I'm giving an example, they'll only be able to see 90 degrees of what's going on. So they don't see the rest of that 360. Therefore, they're making all of these statements and these conclusions, and they don't have the full picture to work with because their DNA is limited. Therefore, they don't understand. They can't see. So they walked right into it, sisters and brothers, and they have proven themselves to be liars, thieves, and murderers just in them expressing how they think about us, and and what they're identifying us to be in the scriptures, they have also identified who they are. So it's very interesting when you start going into these scriptures and really reading them and studying these details, studying the angel, because it reveals so much about these devils, and it tells us exactly what we're up against, exactly what we're dealing with. So we're being given a full 360 view of this whole situation from start to finish, and the devils don't have that. So that's how we're able to stay ahead of these devils and know what they're going to do before they do it. We know what they're thinking. So that's very powerful, sisters and brothers, and it's not to be taken lightly. This is a free gift because you have already paid the price. So anyone charging you for knowledge and information about who you are and where you're going is a goddamn liar and an enemy to the original nation. So let's keep moving. It shares, know of a surety that thy seed shall be sojourners. That means temporary, sisters and brothers. Temporarily in a land that is not theirs. This is not our land. Anybody telling you that this is our land is a liar. And they're totally against the scriptures. And shall serve them. We serve these devils. That's the slavery. And they shall afflict them. They afflicted us for 400 years. That 400 years lasted from 1619 to 2019. How do we know that? How can we prove it? And also that nation, it said that nation, it didn't say individuals. So these devils trying to pop up and say, oh, well, I never hurt a black person in my life. That happened in the past. Leave the past in the past. No. It said that nation. It didn't name individuals. So if you're part of that nation that we served, devils, America, anyone who's a part of that nation that we served, part of the nation that afflicted us, that's the ones who's being judged. So no one's getting out of judgment. There's no talking out of it. Also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. When did the judgment start? 2020. Came in with a plague that passed over those who are the true seed of Abraham, those who have the blood of the Lamb, those who have the same DNA and bloodline as the Lamb, which is also the true seed of Abraham himself. So it passed over Africa, passed over Haiti, passed over the original black man and woman right here in North America, but it dropped these devils like flies. And they are still dealing with COVID-19 till this day. And that's only one plague. They have many more plagues to endure. They will not endure them. They have many more plagues as a part of judgment. And these plagues are going to destroy these devils. These plagues are going to destroy America, Britain, and false Israel. So, the 400 years lasted from 1619 to 2019. And we know that because 2020 came with the plague, signaling that the judgment has started. It's the start of the judgment. And it shared afterward, shall they come out with great substance. So we're coming out of here, sisters and brothers, with great substance. So coming out with our minds, with a thorough knowledge of self. All right, we are the gold and the silver that is spoken of all throughout scriptures. So we are the wealth of America. That's why they refuse to let us go. And in us leaving, they will be plundered. Scripture says they will be plundered when we leave, because all of their wealth, while the gold and silver, will be taken out of here. That's identifying the original black man and original black woman right here in America. So we are very valuable, sisters and brothers. You might not think much of yourself, right? It says that scripture tells us in the book of Mark that the man is beating himself up. So that tells you how he's thinking about himself. He's beating himself up. So, however, you are valuable, sisters and brothers. You are the maker, owner, cream of the planet Earth, gods and goddesses of the universe. It don't get better than it. It doesn't get better than that. We're the cream of the crop. That's why we're hated and despised by every nation. Because we are the ones. So let's keep moving. But thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Well, understand that our father, Abram, is not from America. He was not born in America. He was born in Arabia. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation, sisters and brothers, that's the exact time period that we are in right now. We are in the fourth generation. They shall come hither. Hither means return again. For the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a flaming torch that passed between these pieces. Our experience was horror. Horror. Horror, horror, horror from start to finish. Our precious sisters were totally humiliated. They ripped our clothes off of us, as I explained, raped us around the clock, and they did not spare any of us. They raped us from the day that we were born to the day that we died. They crossed all boundaries. This is not slavery. Let me make this very simple for you to understand today. You go into the job, you clock in, you go and you start working. Then the boss comes and rips your clothes off of you and rapes you, punches you in the face, totally humiliates you. Is that part of the job? So slavery does not include being raped. Slavery does not include being hung. Slavery does not include being whipped to death. Slavery does not include having your fingers and your toes chopped off. Slavery does not include being chained up, forcing our mouths open, knocking our teeth out in the process, and shoveling shit down our throats, and then putting muzzles over our mouths so that we cannot spit it out. That's not slavery. That's horror. That's torture. That's terror. So the affliction identifies how they conducted themselves towards us. It identifies how they behaved themselves. It identifies the quality or the method that they chose of how they maintain that economic system of slavery. That's why these devils are in trouble, for afflicting us. That's why they are being judged. And it's our job to jog your memory, let you know what it is that you have endured, so that you can wake up and take your place as the judgers. Take your place as the judge, because we are the judges. Scriptures tells us an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And we are commanded to give them back double. How can you give them back double and you don't even remember what was done to you? So that's one of the reasons why, that is why they keep this information hidden and sweep it under the rug. And when Black History Month rolls around, you don't hear nothing about the Holocaust, nothing about the sacrifice that the original Black woman has made, none of that. They talk about what the demons did. They give the demons accolades for fighting tooth and nail to be close to their devil fathers. They don't talk about the Holocaust. They don't talk about Master Fraud Muhammad. They don't talk about Elijah Muhammad. They don't talk about the messenger of the covenant. So that should tell you everything you need to know right there about them dealing with us shrewdly, trying to trick us about who we are, what we have endured, and where we're going. So let's keep it moving. The psychological torture. They tortured us on every level imaginable. They tortured us psychologically, put all this fear in us, told us that if we don't believe in Jesus, that we were going to go to hell and burn forever and ever and ever. And even if we did make it to heaven, we're going to be slaves forever and ever. So there was really no winning. And then they gave us a picture of someone who looks just like Massa. And they told us that this is our God. When you go look in the original manuscripts, you find that the name Jesus is not in the original manuscripts. The name never existed. It's a made-up term. Jesus does not exist. He is this made-up character is a myth. It's part of Greek mythology. So it's all a fairy tale. So they built an entire religion off of a lie. And they put their filthy religion of Christianity on us. And specifically attacked our sisters with this BS. Telling our sisters that we're sinful. That's Farrakhan's song. That's his tune. Telling us that we're sinful, that we're bees and we're whores. And you're not sinful, sisters. But putting that fear on us, telling us that Eve caused Adam to sin. But they don't know what that scripture truly means. It's talking about two different countries. Saying the sisters are calling us whores, saying that we're Jezebel, and we're lustful and all this BS. They don't even know what the hell Jezebel is. That's also a country. So, but they have they think so minuscule, and it's due to their DNA. They don't have a full view. They cannot see. They don't understand the scriptures. They don't know what the scriptures truly mean. However, they use that to torture us, So our sisters, a lot of our sisters are in the churches trying to save their families. If the threat of hell wasn't there, no one would be in the church, period. Maybe the house Negroes, but I'm identifying our sisters, the original black woman. If there wasn't a threat of hell, then none of our sisters would be in the church. So you're in there because you're scared and you're fearful. So you're trying to save your family. However, it's all an illusion. And you're down on your knees praying. However, prayer, as they have taught it to us, is in total illusion. You have to get up and get into action to get things done. And see, as mothers, we know this in our core. Because when your baby is sick, you don't get on your knees and start praying. You get up and get into action with whatever the math and the science says needs to be done. You don't pray an ear infection away. You don't pray a fever away. You get into action and you get a remedy in place. So you go into motion. So at our very core, we know that that's a bunch of bullshit. So they tortured us with this Jesus lie. This is very important to understand right now with this war in the Middle East. It's about to get extremely dark. Understand, America's lights are about to be turned off permanently. And we're going to be in action handling business as we have always done. All right? We saved this nation, sisters. And when I say this nation, the original nation, the original black man and original black woman. We saved our original nation. And while these devils are trying to rape our seed totally out of existence, we kept our seed alive. We kept our bloodline alive by sneaking to procreate with our original black man and, multiplying. We had to sneak to multiply because they wouldn't let us openly do it. We were not allowed to have families. We weren't married, none of that. And then we had to do all the things that it took to stabilize that life, sneaking to nourish our babies, sneaking to breastfeed them, keeping them alive, knowing that one day our sons would come back through the womb and avenge us. Just keep our seed alive. So we won. We won that battle, sisters. Understand that we won that battle. We were victorious in that battle against these devils. They were defeated by us because they were not successful. So we won. They wanted all 34 million blacks in America to be chaff. They wanted all of us to be demons. But us sisters, we said we're not having it. And we stood on business. No one told us to do it. No one micromanaged us and made sure we saw the need and we rose to the need. Okay? We stood up for our nation in a time of need. And we're still doing that to this day. And we are the evidence of our 400-year sacrifice. Without our sacrifice, without us using our energy in the manner in which we did, giving charity to our nation, we would not be here today. So your efforts, your hard work has not gone unnoticed. You have a very special place in the kingdom, sisters, because of that sacrifice, that 400-year sacrifice that we have made. This is our reward. And that day, God made a covenant with Abram, saying, "Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates." Now, where is our land? Where is our land? This is our vision. This is our inheritance. This is our reward for enduring 400 years of horror. Our land is Arabia. Arabia is our promised land. Arabia is our heavenly home. It's the best part of the planet that we have preserved for ourselves. When you preserve something, you're going back to it. So this is our vision, and this is what we're going to see through to completion. We have been promised our own economics, our own land. So this is where we're going. We know exactly where we're going. We're not staying here in America. America's about to be destroyed. We are in the process of making our exodus of America. And they want to stop us. They want to distract us. Remember in the beginning, they want to prevent us from leaving this land. They want to prevent us from leaving America. Well, that means if we're leaving America, we got somewhere to go. We got somewhere to be. They don't want us to take our land, Arabia, back. And they're fighting tooth and nail. They're very desperate in their attempt to prevent us from leaving America. So this is what we have to look forward to. This is our vision. One common vision for the original black man and original black woman to unite under. So how does all of this, okay, and then another thing, with them raping us nonstop, all right, and these devils going into our womb and camouflaging themselves, looking just like us, the demons, black skin, but devil blood running through their veins. Their goal was to trick the Messiah when he shows up to fulfill the Abrahamic covenant. Joshua the Messiah is the one to lead us home to the promised land. He is also the messenger of the covenant. So their plan was to trick the messenger of the covenant, the Messiah, Joshua, when he shows up to fulfill the Abrahamic covenant, so that they could run off with our reward. However, they're dealing with us shrewdly. However, we are wise. And Joshua the Messiah, which is Daniel the prophet, he is the wisest man on the planet. Wisdom is one of his primary attributes. Okay, in the book of Daniel, he was asked what would he like to have? God asked him. He said he wants wisdom. Right? And I'm paraphrasing. He didn't want money and fame. He wanted wisdom, because with wisdom, with that discernment, you're going to make all the right decisions and be exactly where you need to be. So that wisdom is better than having money, than having fame. So they're dealing with us shrewdly. However, we are wise. So that's high pressure right there, defeating low pressure. So understand, sisters and brothers, this is what they want to prevent. And the war in the Middle East is directly tied to the Abrahamic covenant. And America has false Israel pretending to be us. That's their backup plan. False Israel has stolen our identity, claiming to be us. False Israel controls this reality. Well, false Israel goes down. America loses. America gets kicked out the Middle East. False Israel gets destroyed. That automatically proves that we are the true seed of Abraham, and they cannot have that. Furthermore, America's economic system is about to be destroyed. When Iran wins this war and America loses the war, Iran is going to turn off their oil supply. So America's lights are going to be turned off permanently. Total economic collapse. And these devils will make an attack on all blacks. For one, they don't want us leaving the country. For two, there will be an immediate famine that strikes America. So they're going to be looking at us for their next meal. So we are in danger, sisters and brothers. And we are about to come together and exit America. We are about to unite under our vision of the Abrahamic covenant and leave America. So with that being said, make sure you have at least a 30-day supply of food that does not need to be cooked. Have it in your car ready to go. Fill up your gas tanks. Secure them. Have them in your car, be ready to go. Because at any moment, we are about to get out, move out, and come together to our safety point. And then move to the next step, the next phase of us leaving America. With that, sisters and brothers, that brings this segment to a close. And I will be back with more. Assalamu alaikum.